Food insecurity and hunger among college students is a growing issue across the nation. The severity of hunger ranges from not being able to afford to eat balanced meals to not being able to eat for entire days because there was not enough money for food. In the past 10 years, this problem has been increasing at such a rapid rate that we probably all know someone who is impacted by food insecurity. We just don't realize it. So often we hear, money isn't everything. These words ring familiar, but do they ring true? For too many college students, these words resonate as a painful, trite cliche. I know what that feels like to hear those words when the reality is that money is tight. I remember thinking, people who say money isn't everything, they have money and they don't know what it feels like to not be able to pay the bills. When a student must choose between food, tuition, rent, utilities, books, fees, and a seemingly endless list of expenses, money may not be everything, but it provides something. Unfortunately, out of that seemingly endless list of expenses, food inevitably falls toward the bottom of the chosen bills to pay, creating food insecurity on college campuses throughout the country. This trend represents a critical social justice issue across the nation and one which requires deliberate and urgent action. Lack of action will produce long-term effects resulting in generational consequences. Food insecurity refers to the limited or uncertain availability of nutritionally adequate and safe food, or limited or uncertain ability to acquire acceptable foods in socially acceptable ways due to insufficient financial or other resources. Throughout the country, college students bear food insecurity in proportions greater than the general population. The lighthearted caricature of a starving college student portrayed in entertainment provides no humor for hungry students. Unfortunately, this caricature represents reality and not exaggeration for too many students hiding in the halls of academia. A recent USA Today tweet caught my attention, and it stated, "So much for the freshman 15. It was linked to an article bringing attention to the fact that more than a third of college students don't have enough to eat. I was taken aback by that. I understand creative journalistic license and all, but mocking students who don't have enough to eat? The story they were retweeting was their own story, and they were making a joke at the expense of students who are seeking an education. It was a horrible tweet which demonstrated no empathy. So I checked out USA Today's Twitter feed, and I did not find any other misplaced attempts at humor. Not when they reported on the Masters golf tournament or on immigration or changes in the tax code. But apparently, USA Today finds food insecurity on college campuses a joke. As a society, as a nation, we can and we must do better than this. The reality is that food insecurity is a growing issue on campuses across the nation. The tragic irony resides in the desire of these students to improve their quality of life and the lives of their families. However, this desire for improvement faces tremendous obstacles. For many students, this frustration must feel like running in quicksand, getting nowhere quickly nor easily. Access to food builds upon the foundation of the most basic level of physiological needs, along with water, shelter, and rest in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. For individuals to attain safety, security, love, belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization, they must first meet the essential physiological needs. Unstable access to adequate and safe nutrition impacts the ability to reach higher needs. Students enroll in higher education hoping to attain self-actualization, yet many factors, some beyond their control, confine the promise of advancement within the lower levels of the hierarchy. Individuals who achieve self-actualization demonstrate greater psychological health, leadership abilities, and a growth mindset. Helping college students break out of the barriers of physiological needs caused by food insecurity will benefit all of society, not just the directly impacted college students and their families. The financial collapse of 2008 and subsequent recession created a ripple effect with consequences reverberating across all sectors of the economy and socioeconomic statuses of individuals and families. The economic divide among students and institutions continues to expand, while merit aid lands in the hands and bank accounts of students from upper income families at a disproportionate rate, widening the financial chasm even further. In the years ahead, the trend on college campuses will shift to a more ethnically and racially diverse student population. This new demographic reflects students possessing lower college readiness skills and diminished academic preparation, while representing families with lower incomes than previous generations. The combination of the ever-growing financial gap, the nationwide demand for a more educated populace, and the demographics of students shifting to minority cultures creates a perfect storm of burden upon those who desire to attain a post-secondary education. The marginalized plunge further into marginalization. The students in the shadows withdraw further into the shadows, and the isolated retreat further into isolation. During the past 10 years, food insecurity quietly and steadily established a firm grip on college campuses throughout America. For over 200 years, our nation has witnessed times of conflict and times of peace, attempts at inclusion and setbacks of discrimination, and struggles and victories. Yet, here the nation stands, looking in the face of social injustices during times when the solutions should arrive with relative ease. Food insecurity evolved into a social justice issue within the environment supposedly serving as the great equalizer. It appears incumbent upon leaders at all levels to rise to the occasion and assist in providing solutions to ensure consistent access to safe and healthy food for college students. At the heart of this matter dwells the paradox. Marginalized students attempting to improve their quality of life, yet they're facing obstacles tethering them into a cycle of poverty. The educational system they turn to as an avenue to break out of this cycle, it remains the same system retaining them in the cycle. Today's college students live in one of the wealthiest nations on the planet, based upon a per capita income of almost $57,000. The United States ranks 14th wealthiest out of 216 nations. Yet, many students struggle to achieve basic sustenance. Campus-specific statistics range from 15% to over 60% of students reporting some degree of food insecurity. Clearly, this 21st century tragedy of food insecurity requires immediate and long-term solutions throughout higher education. When over 60% of college students report not having consistent access to safe and healthy food, yet they live in one of the wealthiest nations in the world, leaders at all levels must contribute to the solution of this issue. Between the early 1980s and 2010, college tuition and fees, unadjusted for inflation, grew by 439%, and the Consumer Price Index increased by only 106%. The increased price tag for a college education clearly outpaces the expense of all other goods and services that students and families purchase as day in and day out necessities. With state funding for higher education decreasing across the nation, the price to attend college that students and families must pay continues to increase at a steady and rapid rate. Even if the price of a college education remains static, the cost of tuition to students will continue to increase because incomes decrease as paychecks cannot keep up with inflation. While assistance programs such as food banks and government aid programs provide benefits, it appears some students do not tap into the benefits of these programs. The diminished utilization may be due to simple lack of awareness that such programs exist, the enrollment processes seem intimidating and cumbersome, or the perceived social stigma of needing assistance. Students experiencing food insecurity indicate a greater likelihood of experiencing mental health issues manifesting as stress, depression, and anxiety, occurring at a rate 3 times higher than among their food secure peers. Studies indicate greater alcohol consumption among food insecure students. Even college freshmen living in residence halls with access to institutional supports reported similar rates of food insecurity as their peers. Binge eating, chronic disease, and lower productivity include some of the side effects of food insecurity. Not only does food insecurity negatively impact the health of college students, but academic success tends to suffer as well. Poor nutrition contributes to fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and irritability, affecting students' performance in the classroom. Research finds food insecure students to have lower grade point averages than their food secure counterparts. To exacerbate academic challenges, many food insecure students report not being able to purchase required textbooks, they miss classes, and they often report having to drop a class. In extreme cases, the result of food insecurity forces some students to withdraw from their universities altogether and discontinue post-secondary education. All too often, the poverty which creates food insecurity also creates stigma and shame that motivates students to conceal their situation as they spend their limited financial resources to educate themselves rather than to feed themselves. Food insecurity creates a hidden, marginalized student population on college campuses. Unfortunately, these food insecure students represent already underserved and marginalized students. Disproportionately, food insecurity affects African American, Latino, Latina, and Native American populations, as well as women, particularly single mothers, and students with disabilities, as well as those who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer at rates higher than the United States population in general. Certainly, not everyone can do everything to solve this crisis. However, everyone can do something. While these statistics seem quite ominous and research chronicles sobering data, support measures contribute to solutions at the campus level and beyond. Perhaps one of the most common solutions taking hold across the country includes campus-based food pantries. 10 years ago, less than 10 food pantries existed on college and university campuses in our nation. By 2016, that number grew to more than 350. Today, more than 500 colleges and universities have started on-campus food pantries. This is good news and bad news all at the same time. The bad news is that this increase in the number of food pantries is indicative of the increased need for food pantries. The good news is that awareness that this is an issue is also increasing, and faculty, staff, and fellow students across the country are stepping forward to help students in need. On-campus pantries provide students with relative ease of access because students do not need to overcome the additional hurdle of finding transportation to locate and receive food benefits. Equally as important, the perception of a student-run pantry seems more like a student resource than a low-income program, thereby increasing the likelihood of utilization among food insecure students. Additional campus-level support resources include food recovery and reuse programs. Through these programs, dining and event services staff collect unused food for distribution to students in need on campus. Other colleges and universities utilize smartphone applications to notify students when leftover food from catered campus events becomes available. Across the country, Swipe Out Hunger chapters provide college students the opportunity to support fellow students through the donation of unused meal plan points or account balances. Higher education institutions fortify layers of support by enlisting the assistance of faculty and staff. On some campuses, faculty members plant and maintain community gardens in hopes of providing healthy food choices for their food insecure students. These campus-level solutions address the effects of food insecurity. However, it makes sense to tackle the systemic causes in hopes of alleviating the effects. To confront systemic causes, some colleges and universities have adopted financial policies including short-term interest-free loans for students anticipating financial aid but have not yet received the payment. These loans provide students with the assurance they will not be dropped from rosters due to non-payment. Other colleges implement interest-free book loan programs to assist in overcoming the expensive textbook hurdle. Adjustments in tuition and fee due dates and consequences for late or non-payments alleviate financial stress for students on some campuses. Many colleges and universities partner with local community organizations to implement mutually beneficial solutions. Engaging college students to assist other college students provides another leadership solution to implement campus support services. Student affairs professionals, faculty, and administrators on college campuses provide the encouragement and organizational structure to facilitate students leading a compassionate social change movement. Through worthwhile civic engagement, student leaders learn while also helping their peers on campus. People who know me know that I love music. Conversations, situations, events, and activities of my life usually have me thinking through the response in my mind through lyrics. As I was studying this critical issue of food insecurity on college campuses, the lyrics of Don Henley's song, The Heart of the Matter, kept coming to mind. The more I know, the less I understand. All the things I thought I knew, I'm learning again. Of course, Don Henley was singing about a love gone wrong, but those words are true. The more I have studied this issue and the more I know about it, the less I understand. The less I understand how this can be happening in one of the wealthiest nations on the planet. the less I understand how it can be that students are trying to improve the conditions of their lives and their families' lives, and they're suffering through it. As a culture and as a society, we can do better than this. We must do better than this. We should and we need to do better. There are inspirational and passionate researchers and practitioners who are leading the charge in the effort to inform the public and find solutions. Sarah Goldrick-Rabb and Claire Cady work relentlessly to improve the conditions of all students, all college students. They are truly inspirational. Food insecurity on college campuses does not occur in an isolated vacuum. Often, students who experience food insecurity also experience housing insecurity, creating a ripple effect of collateral damage. Recently, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, the FAFSA, started asking college students if they experience homelessness. To answer yes generates a domino effect of other questions to prove their claim. Constantly having to prove one's lack of resources tightens the stranglehold of poverty. The illusory truth effect, or the reiteration effect, occurs through the repetition of an assertion, increasing the degree of belief in that assertion. If financial aid systems require students to continually state over and over the depths of their poverty, they will become confident in the truth of that assertion, and it will become increasingly difficult to convince them otherwise. Therein lies an additional layer of this societal tragedy. The adage, money isn't everything, it provides truth and wisdom. There are many things in life that are more important than money. For today's college students who find the courage to face financial adversity in hopes of improving their quality of life, society must provide an empathetic response. As the great Martin Luther King Jr. wrote so eloquently in his letter from a Birmingham jail, the time is always ripe to do right. The time is ripe, and everyone must answer the call to do what is right for college students and society by actively engaging in the issue of food insecurity.